Back in the day, game developers had to work around many limitations, and designers had to think of clever ways to make their game world feel larger than they actually were. Creating these powerful illusions was an art in itself. While gaming technology today has provided a sandbox for game creators, at times a scaled-back approach can be far more effective in executing a game's intended design and themes. Oni, Road to be the Mightiest Oni, takes a less is more approach, an avant-garde experience by the books, which may appear rough around the edges, but has an undeniable soul lurking within. Before we get into the review, we'd just like to thank our Patreon supporters for making this possible. Please take a second to check out patreon.com/noisypixel to support independent game journalism. An epic battle serves as the backdrop of Oni, Road to be the Mightiest Oni, where Kuta, a tiny but formidable demon warrior, is defeated by Momotaro on the battlefield. Devastated by his loss, he channels all of his anger into a quest to become the strongest. To do this, he travels to the remote Kisahima Island to undergo training regimen, all in preparation for an epic rematch against his arch-nemesis. On the island, he befriends a ghost named Kazumaru, who becomes his training companion. The two endure a series of trials together, and they are joined by unexpected friends and companions. The game has a powerful vibe, with several intangibles that you can't quite place a finger on, but all of these little details combine to create an immersive setting. Kisahima Island is lonely and barren, yet it feels pretty alive and has this cozy charm. The emotional sentiment is strong here, especially when Kuta starts to form an unlikely yet endearing friendship with Kana and the other inhabitants. There is a profound sense of mystery to it all, and what the game world lacks in physical scope more than makes up for in its authentic atmosphere. Kuta's quest may involve physical trials and combat, but it is also a profoundly existential journey. In his desire to become the strongest, fueled by his hell-bent resolve to beat his bitter rival, Kuta must also come to terms with the price he has to pay to reach his destination. As battle-hardened as he may seem at first, our protagonist has a gentle side revealed during his interactions with other characters. There's an interesting juxtaposition in the characterization of Kuta, a demon of few words with a strong-willed heart. You can't help but relate to how he seems to carry so much on his own, literally and metaphorically. The game has a beautiful art direction, using simple cel-shaded graphics to bring its charming cast to life, and even the barren game world has a poignant beauty to it. There's a lack of graphical prowess found in the overall design, but the presentation sells the experience. The music perfectly blends the adventure with the narrative, as the thoughtfully curated soundtrack evokes sincere emotions and meaning as they speak to the story's themes. It's a fantastic soundtrack that effortlessly creates a standout vibe to build the atmosphere, which makes the game world exploration feel all that more enchanting. Exploration involves picking up various items and objects, primarily mushrooms, which serve as currency for the shop. Another aspect involves rescuing lost souls scattered around the island, and doing so increases the heart of Kuta, which becomes reasonably necessary even early on in the adventure. A small selection of equipment and weapons can be acquired, but the enchantments can be quite nuanced. Although not an RPG by any means, the adventure elements are still strong, as mixing and matching different gear and increasing the heart capacity goes a long way when taking on the mini trials. These trials are the crux of the gameplay experience, which are triggered by approaching mysterious shadow demons. These trials essentially involve defeating a set number of enemies. However, there's a decent variety of them, as they come in all shapes and sizes. The idea is to physically knock them down before destroying their soul, but if you take too long, they will get right back up. The trials tend to be combat focused, with occasional variations such as different camera angles or objectives where you must protect the shopkeeper. Regular trials lead up to boss fights, which can be quite rewarding. The bosses have interesting puzzle elements to their design, although most will be willing to take quite a beating before going down. The combat system is fun. Kuta has standard combo attacks and can dodge. In addition, there are special moves and certain weapons that have their own signature abilities. Kazumura plays an active role in battles, as players can take direct control of the ghost to perform healing and provide other assistance. Although the variety is nice, it's not the most mechanically smooth. It can feel cumbersome due to the stiff attack animations, and this gets problematic during busier enemy encounters where it's easy to get surrounded. Some frustrations aside, the gameplay loop is comfortable and complements the pacing of the adventure nicely. Oni is on multiple platforms, and the Switch version is probably best avoided if possible. Although the game is functional and the stylistic presentation is intact, the Switch really struggles to deliver a smooth experience. The performance is sluggish and buggy in handheld mode, but things do get better in docked mode, where there was still issues with frame rate, textures, collision detection, and the occasional crashing. Nevertheless, it can be enjoyable, but best to opt for other platforms if possible. Oni Road to be the Mightiest Oni is the kind of game you would inevitably cross paths with. You know, one that over time becomes a remembered cult classic within indie circles. The experience manages to be worth it for the atmosphere alone, and while the gameplay loop may not be anything remarkable, the journey itself is memorable. If you're after something avant-garde and imbued with meaning, it's worth going through the trials and tribulations to become the Mightiest Oni. Noisy Pixel is giving Oni Road to be the Mightiest Oni a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent game coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy Pixel.